All right. So today on the MTB Performance Project, we have Andy McCloy. Andy is the founder of BCI Sports Performance and Fitness down in Alabama. Andy, really good to have you on the show today.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's funny. You and I feel like we've connected so many times via text and DMs. I don't think we've ever had like a true conversation. We certainly haven't met in person, but like this we'll call this as our like first in-person meeting. But really excited about this podcast because I know you and I have over time built a distance relationship, and feel like our evolution, the types of businesses we run, very similar in a lot of ways. So appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. I was happy when you reached out, and I'm sorry it's taken so long for us to align our schedules.
It's all. Believe me, I know how it gets between running a business, being a father, and trying to be present in both those roles. It can be challenging from time to time. So,
indeed it can.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of stuff I want to kind of unpack with you, Andy, because like I think you have first of all, you've been in the game for a long time in a big way, right? Like you've done great work at your facility down in Alabama, but I think, I have a lot of respect for you because like you built your facility like similar to me, like from the ground up, right? You're a coach first. You spent tens of thousands of hours coaching on the floor, working with people of all walks of life. But before we kind of get in all that stuff, like what was it that interested you most about this field? What got you into the field of strength and conditioning and performance training?
Man, there's a really long story there, but I'll try to simplify it. I mean, first, like most of us, I was an athlete. And I realized at some point that being a college athlete wasn't going to be on the table for me. Probably had more to do with the circumstances I'd put myself in than ability. Like I think I could have played college ball, believe it or not, despite being a little vertically challenged. It probably would have been basketball be my upside.
Okay.
I was a pretty good ball player. I was recruited to go to DeMatha High School, which was number one in the country in basketball at that time. And I did pretty good, but I went to 3 high schools, got in a bunch of trouble, and that derailed a lot of things for me. But the weight room was always consistent. It was something that I was always involved in. I had a friend of mine's dad who was a big power lifter. So as a teenager, I got to go to some of the best powerlifting gyms in the country and lift. And there was a point, some really pivotal things happened. My family moved to Alabama. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. I had a couple friends that went to prison. I had a couple friends that were killed. And those were big moments in my life. I was living down in the projects in Indian Head, Maryland, and a little outside DC. And I had a chance meeting with a guy at a Gold's Gym. And I saw a guy that had a similar background to me that had been successful. And all I cared about was being able to feed my kid. I had my first kid at 16 years old. And I really kind of bolted onto him. But a couple years later, after those incidents happened, I realized like if I stay here, my kid's going to be exposed to all the things I was, and we need to get out of there. So when my family had moved away, they moved to Alabama. So when I came to Alabama, I came here with this idea of like, I'm going to start a business like the one I had worked inside of when I met this guy. His name was Eric Williams. And I came here, and quite honestly, I just chickened out. I took a third shift job, and I worked out a lot. But the misery of that third shift job was the thing that made me go, man, I got to do something. And eventually went down to a local Gold's Gym, handed them my personal training certification. Within a year, I ended up taking over that whole gym and then 2 other gyms where I had exclusivity contracts. I hired and staffed all their trainers. That was from like 2000 to 2005. And then in 2005, I made the point to pivot all the way into sport performance training. I was disillusioned by fitness. I felt like my background lended itself better to working with youth athletes. I felt like I had a message I could share with them. I realized that, quite frankly, I didn't know a whole lot. And I got ate up with this stuff. I realized that if I was ever going to be respected at this, I had to be good. And I think I wanted respect more than anything, just being young and trying to make my way. So I just consumed myself with all things training. And that, I think, really pushed me towards sport performance more than fitness. And then I doubled down on that for years, opened this location that I'm in now about 15 years ago. So there was a decade of kind of figuring things out, bouncing around gyms, different locations I had, and just led me to this point now where I'm at. So that's the short version. I'm afraid I derailed this whole podcast if I go through it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's pretty amazing. The bumps and the twists and turns that got you to where you are today. And, it's funny how life works. Like it never works the way you expect. And the ability to kind of take your situation and make the best opportunity out of it is, the fact that you moved states, and, DC to Alabama is not a short move at all. So yeah, I'm sure, like I being from the Northeast, like you and I were talking off air, is like with my work with Quarterback Country, like I'm down in South Alabama on a regular basis. And it's I enjoy going down there, but it's very different from the Northeast in a lot of ways, which I'm sure you experienced when you moved. So
I've spent a lot of time in Jersey and Philly and in that whole area. So it's very different, and I appreciate certain aspects of it. And I think certain aspects are limitations. I do think kind of like having a Northeast mentality when I came down here, that definitely worked in my advantage.
Yeah.
I'd say I was more of a hustler than a lot of people. I just moved faster. I had bigger dreams, bigger ideas because of what I've been exposed to, living in the DC metro area. You see examples of a lot of success. And when I moved here, this was still kind of a little sleepy town. Now it's completely blown up. Forbes ranked it top 3 places to start a small business. It's in the top 5 best places to live in the country. And for any of you guys thinking about moving here, don't. We're already full.
No, we'll send you along your way.
Yeah. Unless you want a job.
Unless you want a job, yeah.
And we'll figure it out. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, so a couple of things that stick out to me is, like, obviously, like when you moved, you had an opportunity and it probably didn't go your way. And then you got into a good situation. And like, I look at success in any realm, like there's first principles. There's things that I think is universal across whatever you're doing that a lot of people think that are non-negotiables in order if you want to be good at anything. Right. So what do you feel like are some of the things that early on in your career as a coach, as a business owner, up until now, what are a lot of the things that you feel like have helped guide your way as like first principles in order to be successful, despite all the stuff going on in your life?
I would say 2 things come to mind: ignorance and ego management. I was very ignorant of how hard this would actually be. And I think if I had known how hard it was, that might have been challenging for me to keep going. But that ego thing, it worked for me and it worked against me. I had enough of an ego to go, I can do this. The other people doing this, they bleed red just like me. I'm a capable person. I can do this. But I was also humble enough, like we were talking kind of pre-show, to realize like I didn't know a whole lot, and that helped me because it made me go, okay, I can be good, but I need to figure out who's really good. And through ego management, I was able to find what I call gold. And back then, that was like the Charlie Francis board, the super training board. For anybody that's over 40, you may or may not remember them. Then we had the West Side board, the Elite FTS board. And because in my community, I didn't have a lot of access to really good strength coaches. But once I could identify them online, I was like, okay, now I know what to do. I'm going to buy all their stuff. I'm going to read all their stuff. I'm going to study all their stuff, and I'm going to go meet them. And then because I wanted to be successful so bad, I think it allowed me to set aside a certain part of my ego that I think holds a lot of people back in our industry. And I was able to just show up at people's gyms and be like, hey, man, I just want to learn. I'll buy my way in here. And, there's many very good strength coaches who got emails from me 25 years ago. And, I showed up to a lot of their gyms, too, and bought all their stuff. So I would say those 2 things, like if we just go like big picture principles, it's that I didn't know how hard it would be. And I learned to manage my ego very early on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Aside from those 2 things from, 15 years ago, do you feel like those truths still hold true now, given, obviously you've built your business and you're very successful at it. And I again, we kind of talked off air, like we're kind of at similar stages of our growth of our business where we've been doing it for a long time. And oftentimes like the stuff that makes you successful early on in your your career as a business owner, as a gym owner, aren't often the things that are going to make you successful in that stage 2, stage 3, 4 and beyond growth. Like, do you feel like those two things still kind of hold true in terms of the way you look at your evolution now?
I'm not ignorant anymore. I am aware, so I do think that I have awareness now, and that awareness is matched up with the clarity of actually what I want and why I want it. And I think a lot of us, when we jump into building a business, it very much is just about becoming significant, finding our way in the world. And, we can end up building something that isn't super fulfilling. And, I think the clarity of where you are and where you want to go is a forgotten element that a lot of people don't talk about. And if there's one thing that always allows me to kind of recenter myself is I'm objective about where I am and where I want to go. And I always lean back on that objectivity as opposed to how I feel about where we are or how things are going, because that is a moving target. But one thing that has stayed the same in my life from the beginning that I kind of alluded to is just a compulsion with education and a focus on this industry and all the ancillary things that make me better at my job: sales, marketing, operations. Like, there's a novel quote, I never can pronounce his name. Novel Ravikant,
yep.
Right? The guy that wrote the book.
Ravikant, yep.
Yeah, so he's a brilliant guy. And I saw a quote from him the other day, and it was like, if you're not 100% in, you will get beat by somebody who's 100% in. Mm-hmm. And that's I completely butchered that, by the way. That's not exact, but that's the premise of it.
Yeah.
And that has been the thing for me, man. Like, a lot of people have gotten I've been in this for, I guess, 25 years now. And I know a lot of people that have gotten distracted. Some have left the industry. And for me, it was always like, okay, I'm right here. This is the next step. I'm only going to focus on that. And then the next step, and then the next step. And that's been really helpful for me. Just, I've said it a bunch now. I'll say it again. Plan B was to make plan A work, but we were very clear on what plan A was, or I was clear, I should say.
Yeah. I love that. For me, I would say definitely I can relate to the ignorance early on in my years as owning a business. And I think the thing that drove me, similar to you, is like, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to make a significant amount of impact, and I wanted to have a successful business. I don't know how to make those things happen, but I felt like if I just kept chasing those things, that, some like good things were bound to happen. And of course, treat people well and do the right things. And, again, getting back to a Naval quote, like, avoid ruin, right? Don't do things that are going to tank the whole operation. If you can do those things like early on, that's what I felt allowed me to be successful early. And then I quickly realized maybe 5 to 7 years ago that was like, I need to change and then being very clear with what my expectations. And for me, like, what I wanted out of my business, right? Like, sometimes, and I speak with other gym owners, it's like they want to make more money. And it's like, well, do you want money or do you want freedom? Because you can't really have both, right? There's a time, like there's points of your business and the evolution and how you grow it. Like there's going to be times where you're going to have to reinvest in people and things and building your business and then reap the benefits. But oftentimes those two things are not happening at the same time. So, just being super realistic with that is I think super helpful for a lot of people where like, again, they're just naive to it. Right.
Yeah. I think the idea of, I think we've been doing this so long, and we came up at a time where there wasn't so much talk about balance and stuff.
Yes.
And I think that, listen, I don't want to completely poo-poo on that message, but I don't know anybody who's been doing it as long as we have who got successful by being balanced. I just don't. And so it's kind of like the time and freedom conversation. If you can earn both money, freedom, and balance, and I'd put that in quotations, it takes time. And we should probably all focus on the money first, right? But then that time freedom is what will give you balance or opportunity to be present. So there's a quote I keep sharing that I forget who to attribute to. It's either Mike Robertson or Vernon Griffith. It's like, you can't balance two things that don't weigh the same. Mm-hmm. And your family and your business will never weigh the same. My family will always be more important to me than my business. But my business is how I take care of my family.
Yeah.
So now that I've built a business. I've hired staff. I've kind of pulled myself out step by step. I do have a lot of time freedom. I make good money. And I think my life is probably as balanced as it could be. And the way I define that is when I'm at home, I'm at home. I don't work when I'm at home. I'm home and I'm present at home. And when I'm at work, I'm really trying not to deal with any family, personal life stuff. I need to be present relative to the role in my company right now, which is leading the staff, managing the people, culture, and money.
It takes somebody who's kind of been through the shit to kind of understand that, right? Because I know for me, I never had that balance, and it was all hustle, just grind every day, all day. Fortunately, my wife was very supportive of that, and that was the early stages of my business. And quite frankly, I had to do that in order to make it successful. But probably similar to you, like I've got two 12-year-old daughters, I've got a 7-year-old son. There was a time where I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. Otherwise, like my job and my role as a father is suffering. Yes. And so how do I create a scenario where my business, right, I might have to make some concessions about like how much money I make. So I bring in other people and hire them to do things that once I used to do, but I was winning back time. And that was the trade-off, right? Like at the end of the day, that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur and owning a business. It's like, you got to make it work for you, and you can pull those levers. You just got to know what levers to pull and understand that, you're oftentimes like at certain stages of your business, like you might have to sacrifice certain things in order to get something back. But like you said, you can't compare two things that don't weigh the same thing. So I like that. I'll get that one. I'll have to write that one down.
I'll figure out who I should attribute it to, and I'll let you know. But that all makes a lot of sense to me, man. And I think a lot of people are very altruistic when they go into business. They're very top line focused and perfect client focused, and you can build some really cool stuff, and then like go, wait a minute, okay, I built a big business, I've got a lot of clients, but I have to work 13 hours to hold all this up, and when I come home, I have no energy to be with my family, and I think a lot of people will suffer through that for a long time because they kind of feel like it's just what happens with entrepreneurship. And to a degree, I would agree with that. But there is a way out. And I have found that the number one thing that has helped me is what we talked about before was clarity. And then the second thing is finding the right team. Team is such a big, big deal. And everybody's heard, right person, right seat. It's like, but I don't think it's kind of like you were saying before, until you've gone through some things, it's hard to really appreciate what we were talking about before. And it's the same thing like this. Until you've had, A players on your team who own their roles and do the work, like it's really hard to appreciate why that's so valuable, because I used to hang around my gym all the time because I lacked trust that things were going to be going down the way I wanted them to go down. And there's still some of that's still stuck in me, to be honest. But I have such faith and trust in this crew we got now. Like I kind of counsel myself sometimes, like go home, like get out the way. You're in the way. You're interrupting sessions because you're talking to people, and it's like, man, just trying to find a way to stay important in there.
Man, that really strikes a nerve with me because that describes me to a T. I've been very fortunate. We've had amazing coaches through the years, like back in like the early 2010s. We've had coaches who have gone on to do great things in the industry. And I was a horrible leader, just horrible. Cause I have no bandwidth because all I was doing was training, and whatever time left, I was trying to run the business. And but again, I was ignorant. I had no freaking clue. And then I realized, I think it was like close to like 2020, end of like 2019, 2020, as my kids were getting older, it was like, holy shit, I'm the roadblock, right? I'm too attached to this thing. I need to get out of the way. Otherwise I'm going to lose these people. And then I'm constantly going to be stuck in this rat race. I'm constantly going to be stuck as a slave to this business. And it was hard. And I'm sure you went through the same thing. And maybe that's still why I coach a little bit, because it's still kind of my way to keep my pulse on things. But it's very true. Like I feel like sometimes just step out of the way and let these guys do what they do, because like you, I have complete 100% trust in my team and their ability to coach and do that job. So
yeah, it's one of those things that I think I didn't trust my ability to manage it and assess it really well. So I felt like I had to be around it. But really now kind of my job is essentially to manage a scorecard, and looking at the data, it gives me a lot of peace at times. Like I promise you, I could walk in my gym every day and nitpick at least 1 to 5 things, right? That wasn't done the way I think it should have been done. But that type of focus from an owner can drive a team crazy. It can be very difficult to grow a business that way. You have to step back and have objective means and measures to evaluate things, and then go, okay, what does the data say? Is this good enough? And if the training quality isn't where it needs to be, for example, well, then as the owner, it's still your responsibility to clean that up, have those conversations, and fix it. But you don't need, at least in my experience, I've found I don't need to do that by being on the floor with them, where I once thought I did. And the thing, I had an epiphany one time. It's like, how do I ever know if they can carry this business if I'm carrying it? And it was like, okay, my voice can't be as loud. It can't be about my name. It's got to really be about this team process and systems that we're building. And that has become this whole ecosystem of BCI.
That's awesome. So out of curiosity, if you look at, like training, right? Everybody has their first principles, their big rocks, and how they address training and performance. Let's shift it to your business. Like, what do you see as like your guiding principles? You said you have a scorecard. What are the biggest things you're looking at on a, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis?
Yeah. So I can tell you, and this fits really well into, so me and one of my best friends in the world, Luka Hocevar, started a business called Built to Last Gym. And it's centered around the principles that we both believe in. One of them is coaching first. And it's a lot of what we've been talking about today. I believe you have to be a very good coach first in order to know how to hire good coaches, in order to know how to train good coaches, in order to spot bad coaches, and quite frankly, garner the respect of people who are coming into your business and probably are not paid that well in the beginning. There has to be some other value. And if there's some apprenticeship that can happen there is value. Now, I think
Absolutely.
Over time, your job is to drive that into the culture, where the culture of the gym is coaching first, and then you don't have to be the main driver of that. Okay. The second thing is what we call operational excellence. And it's making sure that you are managing data, that you have systems, that you are evaluating things. So being really buttoned up operationally, managing your margins, understanding the effects of hires and how that affects cash flow, all that really matters. We also believe in having really good service and educating the marketplace, because I could go deep on service, but I'm gonna skip over that and just talk about the burden of educating the marketplace. We all know probably more, and if anybody's listening to this, don't get your feelings hurt, than the average CrossFit gym owner or Orange Theory gym owner or F45 gym owner, okay? But the consumer doesn't know that. And you can live in this place of arrogance where like, oh, I know more than them, we're better than them. But if they're kicking your butt and taking your members, maybe you're not, So I think if you want your members to appreciate how good you are, you have to have opportunity for education. It's essentially like a propaganda campaign. And I've used this term with my team and other people. There's this old video on YouTube of this old KGB spy. And it's like back in the, 70s, maybe 80s. And he's talking about the plan for Russia to soften the minds of Americans. And it's this very long, drawn out propaganda campaign. And I've compared what we have to do to that, because it's a lot easier for people to just bolt onto something like functional fitness and then believe that it's actually functional, right? When I think me and you could both make a very strong case, there's nothing functional about CrossFit. Okay. And by the way, CrossFit folks, I love you. You're nice people. I just disagree with some of the training stuff, and we can debate it if you want. But my members don't know why CrossFit's not functional. They've been told by a very big brand that it is. So if I want them to believe me over them, the burden falls on me to tell them why, and my staff.
Yeah. I think a lot of people who maybe call it like I don't want to call it like an elitist mindset, but I know people get into that trap quite a bit where they know as the expert how much better and why and what makes them better, but the consumer has no clue. They don't know. They have no understanding of what the nuance of the difference in that. And so 100% we have to make sure that, through efforts of educating, conversations, marketing, anything we can do within our power to kind of get them to understand like what makes us different. And I'd say that's the case in performance training and adult fitness and so, yeah. And how would you say like are some of the key ways you guys do that and do it well?
Well, first thing I would say is I would suggest that most gyms don't actually know what they stand for and what they believe in. I've put a lot of gym owners' backs against the wall asking them questions about stuff like that, and they don't really know. So I think, one, giving your team some insight into the details behind the philosophy that drives the programming and everything else is really important. But that requires you to know what you actually stand for. And it brings me back to that rule of you can break the rules when you know the rules, right? So, but a lot of trainers these days are learning through Instagram and kind of what I call fast food education. They don't really know the rules. So they create programs that are very hard to defend. They don't know why they're doing this all the time. So I could ask any of my coaches, like, what do we stand for here? Like, what do we believe in? And they could tell you and regurgitate it. Now, I want to be very clear. It doesn't mean we always hold that perfectly, right? It's not about perfection. It's about giving them something to anchor onto. So I'll give you a very simple example that is different. Other people have different beliefs, and I did for a long time too. We now believe simply that a squat should look like a squat and a hinge should look like a hinge, which means we took back squats out of our program. It doesn't mean that I don't think back squats have value, but for my specific clientele who is already super extended, pushed forward, kind of living at the end range of extension everywhere, I don't think it makes a lot of sense to choose an exercise that drives that into them. I think it makes sense to choose an exercise like maybe an anteriorly loaded squat, which we could talk about different ones, that drive the center of gravity back, allow them to stay more upright and make a squat look the way we think a squat should look. Now, I'm not going to tell anybody who back squats and doesn't agree with me that they're wrong. But that is what we believe. That is the message our coaches believe in, and that is what gets passed on to our clients. So if they go to a gym and they see somebody doing, a big, hingy, back squat, at least they know now why we don't do that, right? So, and if we talk about some of the other popular methods that are out there, they do back squat. They do a lot of box jumps and things like that. Like we don't do box jumps with adult clients. I've always felt it's more of an expression of hip mobility than maximal jump height to begin with. But there's also the risk reward there. I can create power in a lot of different ways. It's not like I got to jump on a box to create power. And again, if anybody listening to this, if you jump on boxes, I support you doing that. I'm just telling you what I think and, kind of some of the things I've landed on.
Yeah. And kind of like you alluded to earlier, it gets back to like clarity and, who are you serving and what are your like core values, right? Like, I think if you can't direct every single question in terms of the growth and direction of the business back towards like, well, does it serve my coaches? Does it serve my clients within our culture and our core values? If it's a yes, move forward. If it's a no, don't. Right? And it should be, at least for our team, like it should be that easy, right? And that level of clarity in terms of how we're serving our people. So
what you said about values is the big thing. I almost kind of went off on a tangent about that, is that one of our core values is be a pro, but we have specific meanings of what be a pro means, from always be coaching to do no harm. So when we say do no harm, we mean it mentally, physically, and emotionally, right? It's how we communicate. It's how we set up a room. It's how we choose exercises. And if we believe being a pro is keeping people safe, I feel that box jumps are a little unsafe in some environments. Can they be safe? Yes, they can. But when we're managing a room of rather unathletic people who are in the stage of life where they're losing it faster than they're gaining it, I think that is a compromise that we can make and then focus on developing power in a different way, because that's more congruent with the value of being a pro and doing no harm.
Yeah, that's very true. So one thing that I want to ask you, and this is something that, I don't know if you're in a similar mindset. Like when I started my business, like where we are now is ultimately what I envisioned, right? Like I started my business in like a basement of an office complex, and it was amazing that we were able out of that small space to build to what we are now. But I always have this space in mind, and now that we've been here and we continue to grow, right? Like I think in a lot of ways we've hit another gear, so to speak. But in a lot of ways, there's getting back to clarity. Like I don't know what that next step is, right? Like, do we open up more locations? Do we grow this location to, maximal level? Like, have you ever felt like in your evolution that you're in a similar space where it's like, well, I've been successful. Do I continue to roll this playbook and just try to maximize where I'm at now? Or do I pursue other things? And maybe that's what you're doing with Luka and stuff like that, and looking at other opportunities. I'm just curious because for me, like in the last couple of years, that's kind of where I've been. So I'm just curious to where like your mindset is on that stuff.
Yeah, man, that's been a big thing for me for probably 5 years. People closest to me, I'd tell them like, man, I feel like I need a new challenge. I need something. And, I'm connected with a lot of gym owners. And what a lot of people started talking about was opening multiple locations, right? Scaling. I'm like, well, man, I could put a small group personal training studio 20 miles that way, 20 miles this way. And I really started thinking like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to kind of dominate this corridor, and I could go up to Nashville. I could go to Birmingham. I even started pursuing buying a building. I found a building, and a baseball hitting and pitching business was inside of it. I was going to buy the baseball business because it was cash flowing and help take care of some of it. And the deal fell through. Kind of some shady characters. Things didn't go well after I got it appraised. And I'm thankful that it didn't, because it re-centered me. And if I'm honest with myself, I was wanting to do that to create more opportunity for my team. And a little bit of that ego stuff started creeping back in. I wanted to do something bigger, right? So I reflected on that and decided that my next way to kind of create legacy, which is kind of the game I want to play, would be to be helping gym owners figure out everything that I wish I had learned in masterminds and coaching programs. A lot of masterminds and coaching programs are very heavy on information these days because information is easier to scale. But information is not coaching. And I really enjoy coaching and working with people and getting to know them. And so me and Luka both are very aligned on that. We're both completely ate up with not only the fitness and sport performance business, but the business of it. So we decided to partner up and create this program, Built to Last Gym, which is going phenomenal. And I'm incredibly excited about it. Where I think I'm going now with BCI, because I still have this urge to create more opportunity for my team. But the idea of splitting them up is not as appealing to me right now. So we had our first Built to Last Gym event in Austin, Texas. And Luka's connected with everybody, right? So he got us into the C4 headquarters, which is like a $75 million facility. I mean, it is unreal, okay? They went to ATX Strength. I think it was a big kind of powerlifting gym. I decided to take a nap that day. I wasn't going to that one. But then we also went to Collective. And Collective, when I walked around in there, it made me go, maybe something like this is next. Because for me, I do want a real estate play. That's important to me for kind of the long game. So if I could have a real estate play involved in this, create a co-working space. I got friends that own coffee shops, like maybe we could create this really cool facility that I only need about 3,000 to 4,000 extra square foot for the gym, but we could go bigger with ancillary businesses to create almost this social club feel, where like people want to hang out there. They want to be there. And that came from like way back in the day when I was first working with athletes. Like they'd hang out at the gym all night. They'd, be done working out at 5. They're not leaving until 7:30. They're hanging around talking. And, it's like, and as I pulled myself out, we lost some of that feel. And I love that barbershop type of feel where like everybody's hanging out. There's business going on, but there's social connection. And so that's where my head is now. And that vision is getting clearer and clearer. And it's pretty exciting thinking about it.
Yeah, that's pretty wild because that's kind of where my head goes to a lot. I think, look, I'm not saying if the right opportunity presented itself to open up another space that I wouldn't pursue it. And very much like you, like the only reason I would do it is because like, again, I could help athletes, right? I can push forward our core values and our opportunity to help improve the lives of athletes. But I look at, when I first started, like I just wanted to help athletes. That was it. That was my main focus. And now I still want to do that, but I want to help the lives of my coaches and my team, right? I'm so fortunate that, and you probably the same, like it's tough making it a living in this business, right? Raising a family and with quality of life, right? And not just be in a grind. So I want to help create the same opportunities for my team, right? Because I'm not an idiot. I know that they're helping me grow my vision. And for me, I want to pay that forward to them and create opportunities. And that's where I see potentially other locations, so on and so forth. But I do like, to me, that the idea of having a hub, right? Like a flagship spot where, just like you said, like, and it's funny, the barber, the coffee, like I see that same stuff too. And it's because it's, I think like I put it in the shoes of like myself, like what would I want? Right. And I know there's other men out there who want like a place where they can go and be social and have like this whole experience, right? Like there's not much out there. And so, and similar to your area, right? It's seems like a primary to do that. I think there's opportunity, whether it's real estate or one of those types of things. Like it intrigues me, right? The novelty of it is fascinating.
Yep, I agree. There's 2 things. While you were talking, I was like, I don't want to forget this. So I jotted down 2 notes. One thing I will say is before the idea of multiple gyms, I believe before anybody does multiple gyms, they should make sure that their main location's really buttoned up. And there's 2 things that I paid some buddies of mine that own multiple gyms for a 1-day like consulting day to just learn what I don't know about scale. And there was a couple of things that I realized through that experience is that our job training wasn't built out good enough. The roles and metrics were not clear enough. We needed to get really good on that if we were going to try to replicate this somewhere else. So it gave me something to focus on. But another thing that I came back to is I have to provide golden handcuffs, for lack of better words, right? A job so good that they see the value in pushing through. Because like you said, most gym owners don't pay people that well when they start out. It's hard. The margins aren't there in this business, and that's the reality of it. But we've got to a point now where leadership team is all on salary. They have health insurance. They have a retirement match. And that was important to me, whether we went multiple gyms or we just stay focusing on this one. The multi-gym thing, I fear, is becoming a little bit like boot camp facilities. Remember when boot camps were all the rage and everybody jumped in on that? My fear is that people are doing this with small group personal training now. It might become the new boot camp, because of oversaturation. And I can't say that'll happen for sure, but it's one of the things that's been in the back of my mind is if so many people are now replicating this product, it is becoming a little bit more commoditized, and you're going to have differentiation both for clients and staff. So that was one of the things swirling around in my head. And then I'll back this up with one thing about the multi-gym deal. probably 12, 13, 4, I don't know, somewhere in that range. I should just quit using like numbers. I should say like maybe a decade ago or something. Myself, Devin Gage, Vince Gabriel, Joe Carabasi, a bunch of dudes that some people listening to this probably know. We were all in a mastermind and had an opportunity to pay Seth Godin for a day. So we all put all our money together and we paid Seth Godin. We went to his office in Yonkers, New York. We sat down in his office and we got to get wisdom from Seth Godin. At that point in time, there's probably 7 or 8 of us, maybe more. There was one guy, Joe Carabasi. What up, Joe, if you hear this? He owned multiple gyms called Melt up in Connecticut. And as Seth was talking about things, he was like, hey, well, let me ask you a question. How many of you guys own one gym? All hands go up. How many guys own 2? Just Joe. 3, Joe. 4, Joe. At this point, he's like, how many do you own? And I think he had like 5. And he goes, okay. And he paused, and I'll never forget it. He was like, you should own one gym or own 10 or more. Everything in between, you're not really getting the full benefit of scale, but you are quadrupling problems, probability of issue, and like buddies of mine that I know that are doing this, they're going past 10. Like my buddy Devin, he wants to do 100. He wants to get it to 30 and then take private equity and maybe do it all on his own. I don't know. That's just my assumption. But I think that there are people who are built for it and that are going to see it all the way through past that 10 mark. And I think there's other people that are going to get to 2 to 3 and they're going to triple their problems and their life is not going to be as balanced as it was. And as you probably know, like when pressure stacks up, this whole thing isn't as fun. And so those are a lot of the considerations and things I've taken into account when thinking about what to do next.
Yeah, I think that's super valuable information. And I believe I think I've heard you say that before. One of those guys say that because I think it's so true. Like you got to know what you're getting into. And oftentimes the juice isn't worth the squeeze. But if you're thinking so long-term, then you're like, yeah, all right, if I'm thinking 100, then yeah, 10 is good. But if I like, it just shifts the focus and the narrative to like, it gets back to like the ultimate clarity. Like, what do you want out of this? Right. If you're chasing money, like, yeah, you have to understand like there's going to be a cost and there's going to be a sacrifice ultimately in the long run. But if you're seeking a balance between the two, maybe that's not the right play. And if that's the case, you got to be okay with it. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's where I've kind of settled is, you know, again, getting back to like early years, being naive, like thinking of like, how do I get there? And it's like, well, now I kind of have an understanding of how to get there. Like, do I really want to go there? Because I know what it takes. But if that's what you want, then go for it. Right. Like, you know,
make sure you know why.
Yeah. You got to have a really good reason why it is to like, and I think sometimes people become really unhappy because they're chasing something without the understanding of why they're chasing it. And then that's a tireless act and you're just stuck chasing forever. Right.
Man, I could not agree more with that. I mean, that is big. And again, I think that why is a moving target for a lot of people. Like, for example, I don't think opening another gym to make more money should be the driving factor, because what that tells me is probably your current gym isn't profitable enough. So if you think just opening another gym is going to solve that, it may not, especially if you've struggled to run one profitable gym and you don't know why. Now, if you know why and you plan to right those wrongs, then I get it. Makes sense, you know?
Yeah. And then it just becomes a shiny object and now you're just chasing a chase. So
there's a significance factor of saying I own multiple gyms versus I own one gym. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, human beings will do anything to gain significance. We will do a lot of things to gain significance. And those ego games can drive people to incredible success, and they can also crush you. So that knowing why is very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately I've pursued some opportunities and had to learn the hard way in that regard. But in a lot of ways, I'd say for the last 3 years, we had 2 different opportunities that we had pursued here and just didn't, for a lot of reasons, just didn't work out. And man, it crushed me and really knocked me down mentally, like crushed my will to do this. And like, I remember at the end of 2023, like by all accounts, like our business was thriving. And, if you were from the outside looking in, it was great. But if you look at, from the inside, like it was not as good as it looked. And I remember finishing out the year in 2023 and man, it like just felt like I was punched in the gut and, had to make a lot of hard decisions and do some challenging things in early 2024. And then it ended up being an amazing year for us. And so now it's like, all right, now I have a lot more clarity. I have a lot more, like, I know what I want out of this because I see what it's capable of. And now it makes sense, right? Like now I understand the game a little bit better and it just helps me make these decisions much better. And ultimately, like you said, like if you're making these decisions because you want to make more money, that's not a good way of doing these things. Like to me, it's how do I provide more opportunity? Does it make sense for our team to do these things? Right? If it only makes sense for me, then it's not a worthwhile decision. So,
yeah, man, speaking my language there, and kudos to you for sharing that because I really think a lot of gym owners need to hear that. They might think, me or you, we've been in business so long that like we've never ran into tough times or we haven't sat with our head in our hands like, oh, why did I do this? Or I made a mistake doing this. But man, the reality is everybody that I know is successful has had those moments and they've had to like really look in the mirror and go, whoa, tough. I realize, and I think a lot of people do this when we set our business up originally, we set it up for ourselves. We
Absolutely.
Don't really set it up for a team or for profit. It's like, I just want to make myself happy.
Yeah.
And that can be great for some years, but it can also be rather challenging. Of course, a phone call tried to come in on my laptop here. Never happens, but so I think people need to know that even really good gym owners, they struggle and they've had those moments where, they wonder like, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
And if you've built it for yourself, just understand there's hard decisions that got to be made if you want to build it for others. And that may be very, very challenging. And, but it's still worth it,
Yeah. And I feel ironically enough, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who've gone through struggles. Like I feel like in those periods, you're forced to expand your capability. Otherwise, like you're going to drown. And so I think doing it in a way to seek out those growth opportunities in a healthy way is so important, right? As soon as you feel like you're starting to get comfortable in your current state, like not to kind of just rock the boat, but like seek out opportunities to be uncomfortable, right? Seek out opportunities to grow and expand your capabilities, because I think that's the only way you're going to continue to grow. And in a lot of ways, those experiences were that for me. And, through kind of pulling myself out of those situations, I figured a lot of shit out. And like now I'm coming out on the other side, I'm just way better for it. So. Yeah.
And I think, I would assume you've worked with coaches and stuff. So just think about this. This is one of the harder things I think for gym owners. If they have a client or like, let's say a friend, right? They have a friend who's trying to learn how to lose 20 pounds and add 40 pounds to their bench press at the same time. And they're trying to do it by reading books and going online and, listening to other people that have done those things. They're learning, right? But you as an expert know that if they hired you, we could make that happen a lot easier. We could avoid a lot of the nonsense that people get caught up in. And that's very similar to what I see a lot with gym owners. Is we can read it all, the internet, Chat GPT, it's all out there, man, Instagram. And a lot of gym owners struggle through all this, trying to do it on their own. But when you hire a coach or you get involved with a program, you get to borrow the wisdom of everyone else's mistakes. You get
Absolutely.
to have all this context and information that becomes really, really valuable. And one of the reasons I am coaching and mentoring is because of how valuable that was in my life too. Mm-hmm. And it's like everybody needs those things in their life. And ironically, gym owners give their clients advice that they don't take. Yes. They tell them things like, focus on the process, not the outcome. And then you talk to them and the only thing they talk about is the outcome. It's like, well, are we measuring a process to get to the outcome? And a lot of them just do not. They just don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's the old mindset of like, if you're a coach and you believe in what you do so much, like, why don't you have a coach? Right.
That's right.
A business coach, I have a business coach. I have a person that I speak to from like, just like a growth therapy / like all that stuff. And then I have somebody who like programs my training, like, because at the end of the day, like, it helps me sift through the stuff that, like you said, you learn from their mistakes. Right. I speak with people all the time about their gym and the challenges they go through. Like, oftentimes I'm 10, 15 years ahead of where they're at right now. And so like, I can say, all right, are you doing this, doing this, doing this? All right, focus on that and then come back to me. But the funny thing is, how often do you do that? And people come back to you in a month and say, all right, I did all 3 things that you told me to do. What next? Rare. Right. So, it's like, you could give people all the knowledge they want, but oftentimes it's like, you just got to execute. And so, and again, that's another true value of a coach is not only do they share the knowledge and the clarity and where to go, but hopefully a coach is going to keep you accountable to do the shit that you got to do, right? Like, you just do the thing, do the thing. So I love it.
Yeah. I'm a big accountability person. I believe that you have to be willing to have people hold you accountable. And I think a lot of coaching environments are not set up that way. I think a lot of people struggle to be a little harder on people at times. They're worried about losing a client if they upset them. It's like, but sometimes people need to hear, whether that's a client in the gym or a business coaching client or something, they need to hear the truth. And if you're actually a really good coach, you probably know how to have that conversation in a way that would be very positive, not negative.
Yeah. The tough love / parenting, like, when you're raising your kids, like, your kids don't need another friend. They need a parent. So a lot of times that's your role as a coach. So
yeah, I love that. I think it's from Ego is the Enemy. And I'm sure somebody else said it before then, but I think I just remember it in the book, is that we all need somebody like below us to teach, somebody on our level as a peer to gain context from, and then we need a mentor or a coach above us. And if you have all 3 of those layers, you're in a good spot. And most gym owners usually have the people under them, and that's about it. They don't have a peer group of people that are savages. And again, I'm openly share this. Like, I got a superhero team of friends, man. Like, they're all great at this stuff. And that benefits me a lot. Some of the conversations I can have with some of the best gym owners around now, like, we call each other, text each other. I don't even have to pay for this stuff, but that came from us paying someone else for coaching years ago and getting to know each other in the same group. And now we're friends and we're all older and we're all doing big stuff. And, there's some benefit to that. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I know, like, when I was, 10 years ago, when I was just stuck coaching 80 hours a week, and that was my problem, right? Like, I had people below me. I had nobody at my level, or certainly nobody above me. I was just so focused on, keeping things afloat and trying to do the right thing. And, I just got stuck. And I think it wasn't until like I started to remove myself from coaching so much and started to take opportunities. And I'm inherently a reserved, quiet person. So getting outside and connecting and networking and all that stuff was inherently something that was challenging for me. And coincidentally enough, like, over the last 2 to 3 years, I've been doing more of that. My business continues to go in better places, and it's like, it's not a coincidence. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, well, Andy, I love this. This was really awesome to connect.
Sure.
I'm curious, like, so, you're running BCI, you're doing, the Built to Last. What excites you, given your current roles? What excites you the most right now in what you're doing?
The focus that we have on BCI right now, we are in a place right now where, like, in our annual planning meeting, I was like, listen, we're not going to let up on the things that drive acquisition and prevent attrition. But we have a flywheel effect right now where it seems like whatever we put in the market comes back damn near double. So we don't have to focus as hard on acquisition. What we have to focus on is product. And while I believe our product is better than everything in the market, it's not our best yet. So we've invested in force plates and VBT and some other things that like I've been playing around with and learning about for years, but I'm empowering my staff to learn more about those things and lead it. And we're really trying to create something unique in the marketplace. That is something that I'm very happy about. And once we really solidify this, we're going to have more seminars and opportunities about what we do at BCI. We might even do some products and stuff on what we do. So I'm very excited about that. It'll create opportunity for my team. We're going to need to add people to our team. We're going to have to get better and develop skills of like data management and those type of things. So a lot of exciting stuff there. On the built to last side, I'm so excited about what me and Luke are doing. It's kind of silly. I feel like a kid that just started a business, and I love it. I love me and him working together because we're such good friends. We're two very different people that share a lot of the same values. So we have this really unique ability to work together that I can't explain it well enough unless you get us in a room. Like you can see it. We just play really well off each other, and I love it. And then furthermore, we're creating a kind of a philosophy around Built to Last Gym. Like there are principles that go beyond marketing and sales that still grow a good gym. And it seems like everybody these days are just so focused on marketing and sales. And listen, I believe you should be great at those things. Don't get me wrong. I just told you I paid money to go sit in front of Seth Godin. But what has helped me, and I know what's helped Luka more than anything, is these things that we really believe in, those top two tiers: coaching first, operational excellence. And then the third thing I didn't mention before is personal leadership. And that is really to the discussion we've been having, making sure that you're present when you're at home with your relationships, make sure you're taking care of yourself so you can buffer against the stress of running a gym. A lot of guys, their health gets swallowed up by this thing, and that becomes a limiting factor to their growth. So I could keep ranting about that, so I'll slow it down. But those are the two main things I'm excited about right now.
Well, that's incredible because, obviously, as somebody who's been doing it for a long time like you, it wasn't built overnight, right? I think a lot of people, the challenge is a lot of people see somebody like you or somebody like Luka or somebody like myself, and, we have a good business, thriving business. Like, we're very fortunate, right? But it wasn't built overnight. Like, I think that time component is something that a lot of people overlook, and just the ability to kind of navigate those challenges and have that ultimate mindset where, like, no matter what happens, I know where I'm going. So whatever gets thrown at me, I'm going to handle it and move on. And that's tough. That's tough for a lot of people. And that's where principles, guidance, like the core values, all that stuff that's what makes like those principles so important. So.
And I honestly think guys like us, and I think more people need to talk about how challenging this is. Because what I am a little upset about is that for the past couple of years, all the business coaching advice for our industry has been centered around, hey, in 90 days, I'll make you $90,000, or how to get your first 10 clients in 10 days, and how to, it's like, and I understand why people market in that way. Like, I totally understand the psychology and persuasion involved in that. However, I think it really sets people up for unrealistic, out of congruent expectations of how it's really going to go. So I'm very open. It's like, this will probably be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. And if you're not ready for that, you shouldn't do it. But if you love this stuff and you really want to make an impact, there is a path to building a profitable gym that provides you time freedom and all these things you and I have talked about today. But it's not going to happen in 90 days. And it's not going to be as easy as you're being marketed to.
Yeah. The email I got yesterday, I think, was we can increase your membership by 226%. I'm like, oh, really? So I'm gonna. It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Andy. Where can people find what you're doing, both on your gym space and your mentorship?
Yep. So you can find me on Instagram, Andy McCloy _BCI. You can find the BCI Sport Performance page through that page. I got to be honest, I couldn't even tell you what it is. We have somebody else that manages that. It's like BCI _sports_ something like that. But you should be able to find it pretty easy through the search bar. And then builttolastgym.com is the website for what Luka and I are doing. But I'll be honest with you, like one of the things that me and Luka are really committed to is like you reach out, like you're going to talk to me. I'm not going to send you to some random sales guy, to talk to. Me and Luka are going to be present, and you can actually get a hold of us.
Love it. Love it. Well, Andy, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time. For everybody who's listening, appreciate you guys tuning in, and be sure to subscribe and like the episode as it helps us grow the show. So Andy, once again, appreciate you, brother.
Likewise, man. My pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.